This is Joshua Heston of stateoftheozarks.net, and I am down here in the middle of the night in the Bull Shoals Cavern, Bull Shoals Mountain, 1890s Mountain Village.
Yeah, Mountain Village, 1890.
And we're down here. I'm down here with William Fleming. William, you're from Tulsa, is that right?
That is correct, yes.
But you are a paranormal investigator.
Yes, I am.
And you have worked at this village, and you've determined that this is one of the most active places that you have found.
Yeah, basically I've been doing paranormal investigation my entire life. Started out as a very young child observing paranormal instances, and it just really captured my interest, and it was something that I pursued my entire life, and been to just dozens and dozens of places conducting investigations, and this place right here is by far one of the most actively haunted places that I've ever investigated.
And the Mountain Village 1890, it is a number of buildings. Of course, we've been walking around here. There'll be photos and articles on State of the Ozarks. We have been walking around here, and there's a number of historic buildings. We're sitting inside one right now. Tell us about this building.
This is, we call it the Colonel's Place. It came from Monkey Run, a little place south of here a ways. But it belonged to a gentleman by the name of Colonel William Baxter Jordan. He was a Confederate soldier during the Civil War. Basically relocated to the Monkey Run area and built this cabin that we're sitting in now.
Mm-hmm. And we've got tons of history in this one little place, this one ridge.
Yeah.
Tell us some of the paranormal instances, some of the activity that you have seen.
Oh gosh, everything from phantom smells to full-form solid apparitions. I mean, all of it. The full spectrum, and that's why I love this place, because there is so much activity and such a wide variety of activity that goes on out here. We've, like I mentioned, with the full-formed apparitions, we've seen solid apparitions that look like a real person out here, wearing like period costume, but it's a person that dissipated after a few seconds. And translucent apparitions, basically the same thing, only you can kind of see through them. But just every form and manner of activity that goes on out here. Doors that open and close, the window shutters on this structure here are very problematic to the owners because they have a tendency to open themselves up, even though they're latched and locked from the inside. They'll come in the morning and the doors and windows will be standing wide open. Everything you could possibly imagine goes on out here, short of violent interactions. I mean, that's one of the reasons that I like bringing people out here for my tours is the fact that there are no violent spirits out here. They're a little bit mischievous, they're kind of ornery, but there's nothing out here that's going to harm you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And tell folks about the tours themselves. How does that come about?
Well, the Mountain Village 1890 Haunted History Tour, it basically started with, my first investigation out here. I'd caught wind that the place was haunted and asked the owners if I could come out here and conduct an investigation. And after that first night, I was just astonished by all the activity that went on out here. And they allowed me to come back over the course of a year, several times, and conduct investigations. And at the end of it, I took all the video, all the photos, all the audio that I'd collected out here and presented it to the owners and said, this is amazing. You've got an incredible thing here that we could, bring the public in and introduce them to it. And that's basically how the Haunted History Tour was born. I spent another probably year and a half just doing nothing but research. And that's what paranormal investigation really is. It's about 95% research. Mm-hmm. But I went through and I researched all of these old structures. I researched the people who built them, the people who lived in them, the people that went to these community buildings, the church and the general store and places like that, and did all the research, found all the names, found where these buildings came from, and used all of that to construct my tour. So when people come out here, they get to experience, the paranormal end of it, the things that, they watch these reality shows on TV and they get the hokey fake version. They come out here and get the real thing. Plus they get a history lesson that's kind of buried underneath the covers.
And I think a lot of times when you delve into folklore and when you delve into paranormal, when you delve into those stories, you get the personal side of history that's not in the books.
Oh yeah, yeah. Basically, when the history classes that you took in school are just really the sterilized version of history. They take all the personality out of it. And when you do your own research and talk to people and interview people, you really get the meat of the story. And that's where the real history is getting personal accounts. We like hearing about what famous people did, but what about the people that helped organize it? What about the people that were assisting George Washington, the people that were assisting Robert E. Lee, or all those folks that were in the background, but they had this important, integral part of history that brought it all together. They were basically the glue that brought these things that we learn about in class together.
And without folks getting into that kind of information, nobody even has any idea about their names.
It'd be lost. It would absolutely be lost. It's just like the names that are associated with these structures. They were pretty well lost up until I started doing the research on it and found out who these folks really were.
Mm-hmm. And tell us about the oldest building on Park.
Well, that would be the Martin House, or what we call the Martin House. It was came from the woods just north of Jasper, Arkansas. It's a beautiful two-story dog trot style log cabin, and it was built in 1836 by the Martin family, who came over here from Tennessee and established their home in the Jasper area. And there's evidence upstairs that tells me that the house was in use for well over 90 years.
Mm-hmm. And just give us a quick rundown of the various buildings that are on Park.
Well, as you go through here, you come in, you've got the train station, which we use kind of our reception area, our gift shop, and things like that. When you come in, that is the first thing you see is a train station. It was originally located in Piatt, Arkansas. It was built in 1906 when they brought the railroad through this area. From there, when you get out into the courtyard, you've got the Martin House, which I just touched on. Next to that, we've got the bank, which came from Ash Flat, Arkansas, and on the back side of it is a small doctor's office. Beside that, we've got the general store, which came from Beaufort, Arkansas, little area south of here. It's a neat old general store, just kind of like the type you see on the old westerns and things like that. And it's all adorned just as it would have been when it was in use back in the 1870s when it was first established. Absolutely fascinating building. I love being in there. Next to that, we've got what we call Willie's Cabin. It's actually a local cabin. It was brought in from about a mile away. It's just a very rustic log cabin, very indigenous to what you would have found in this area, century and a half ago. It's a log cabin on the front. It's got a second story area, and then it's got an addition built on the back made out of planed wood that they probably would have picked up from a local mill. Then across the way, we've got what we call the hot box. It's a jail cell, a big iron jail cell painted black. This was kind of a wicked little device. Back in the day, they would take some of their more hardened prisoners and stick them in this black iron box and set it out in a clearing where it would get full sunlight all day long. And if you could imagine being stuck in a black iron box all day long, like on an August day, it would really take the wind out of you quick. It was just a way that they used to calm people down.
I bet it worked.
I'm sure. I spent a couple hours in there back in May a couple of years ago, and it was about all I could stand.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, next to that, we've got the structure we're in, the Colonel's Place. I absolutely love this building. This is actually one of my favorite structures out here on the property, simply because there is so much activity associated with this building. And for some reason, I like the Colonel. I feel kind of a bond with the Colonel. Next to that, we've got our blacksmith shop. That came from Dot, Missouri. Neat structure. It's got the billows in it. It's got a lot of the old tools in there. We're not exactly sure when it was built. The problem with Dot, the original Dot, there's nothing left of it. There's no history of it. There's no records of it. The closest cemetery is 5 miles away. So chances are that folks that lived in that community that were buried, they were just buried right there, and there is no established cemetery for them. But it's a fascinating building, and it's split into two sections. You've got the blacksmith shop on one side, and then on the other side you've got the coffin shop. Mr. Blaylock, who used to run it, he was pretty much your go-to guy in the community. Whether you needed nails or, shoes or wagons or to bury somebody, that was the guy you went to. On the other side of that, we've got an amazing farmhouse. It came from Flippin, which isn't very far from here at all, but it's called the Lynch Flippin House because it was the home of Mary Elizabeth Flippin and James Lynch. Both of them were very affluent, and you can see it in the house. It's a beautiful old house built in 1870, and it almost looks like it could have been built 10 years ago. Beautiful house. All of the furniture in there is gorgeous, very expensive for the time. We were fortunate enough that when the building was brought here, we got a lot of the outbuildings, the barn, and some of the livestock buildings came with it. And all of that stuff is set up out here just the way it was when it was in the city of Flippin. And then right across the way, kind of the north central part of our courtyard area, we've got the church, and that church is breathtaking. It's just, it's a neat, just old country style church built in 1888. Everything in its original. It's got all the original pews, the altar, even the Bible in there came with the church. Just an amazing, beautiful, breathtaking structure.
Mm-hmm. And that originally was built in Blue Eye.
It was. It came from Blue Eye, Missouri. Right there on the border of Arkansas and Missouri. So half the city sits on Missouri and half of it on Arkansas. But I believe the church itself stood on the Arkansas side of the city.
Mm-hmm. And when we were walking around and we were in the church, you mentioned some of what the Blue Eye residents went through during the Civil War.
Yeah, really incredible history to that city. It turns out that the folks who lived in that community during the Civil War period, they decided not to take sides during the war, and that was a decision that would come back to really harm them because they ended up being invaded by the Northern Army, the Southern Army, the Bushwhackers, the Jayhawkers, and the Baldknobbers. I mean, they got it from every direction. These poor folks living there in that town at the time, they were so afraid of being raided that during the day they would hide in area caves, and when they'd come out at night, they would just pray that their homes were still standing. It was just an incredibly traumatic time to live.
And so the church was built by the survivors of that experience.
Yeah, a lot of the people who lived through all that are the ones that built that church.
Mm-hmm. And of course, the village is up top. Underneath us is Bull Shoals Cavern.
Yeah, oh man, you want to talk about neat. The Bull Shoals Caverns are absolutely amazing. You go into there's a lot of area caves and caverns around this area that you can go into, and they're neat, they're fascinating, but they're primarily these huge chamber rooms, whereas our cave is more of a tunnel-like experience. You actually go through a tunnel that just goes down and down and down and down, and there's so many magnificent formations in there. Yeah, every formation that you typically find in a cave, we've got it here in the Bull Shoals Caverns.
Mm-hmm. And so, of course, like many caves, it's been used by people for centuries and centuries.
Oh, yeah. We figured that the cave is probably 300 million years old in its formation, and there's evidence to prove that the cave itself has been in use for over 3,500 years. So right about the time that they were building the pyramids in Egypt, the Valley of the Kings, and doing all that, there was people in this area in that cave.
Mm-hmm. And of course, we just came out of the cave a few moments ago. We went into the cathedral room that is believed that the Osage and possibly other Native American tribes held ceremonies.
Yeah, it's really kind of a neat area. It's actually above the main cave. It's a chamber that sits atop the main cave, and it's really neat. It's about the size of a small room up there, plenty of room to stand up, plenty of headroom, and boy, the acoustics in there are amazing, and just so many gorgeous formations in there. But the Native Americans used to use that kind of like a sweat lodge. They build a little fire in the center of that chamber and use it sort of like a sweat lodge. They do ceremonies in there, ask the gods for, rain, good crops, things like that, just prosperous and thinking and giving up offerings and things like that in that room.
And that room is beautiful.
It really is, yeah.
And, of course, you can't get out in the dark hills of the Ozarks without thinking about moonshine. So did that take place?
Yeah, we've got evidence to prove that cave was indeed used by moonshiners at one time. In fact, when the gentleman who took over the place back in the 1960s, when he decided he was going to open the cave up to the public, he actually pulled an old moonshine still out of there, and we've got part of it out here at the village on display. People would see. Unfortunately, we don't give away free samples.
And I think an important question is the cave haunted?
Yes, I've conducted some investigations down in there, and there is indeed some paranormal activity down there in that cave. It's again, you're talking about an area that's got a lot of history to it. There are people that probably lived in that cave for long periods of time. Probably people who died in that cave. We know that the cave was used during the Civil War period. They used it for a saltpeter mining operation. It was used as a triage because there were some small skirmishes that took place in around this area. We're right on the edge of the White River, and there was a lot of activity that took place in this area during the Civil War, so it was used as a triage. There was a rather tragic incident that took place during the earthquakes of 1810 and 1811, where there was a family, most likely Native American family, who was living in that cave at the time when part of the ceiling came down on top of them. And it is such a large section of stone that there is just literally no way to move it.
Mm-hmm. So they were crushed underneath that.
Unfortunately, yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we suspect that their remains are still underneath that slab. So it stands as a monument to them.
Mm-hmm. Now, I think a lot of people, they like to read ghost stories, or they like to get into that just because it gives them a chill. They get.
Yeah, people like to be scared.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Give folks one incident that happened out here.
Oh gosh, there's so many to choose from. One of my favorites, just simply because I had several witnesses to this instance, but we were running a tour out here. This was took place in July last year. It was toward the end of the tour because I took people all around, and our last stop on the tour is the church. And did our little presentation in there and let people look around, take some pictures, whatever. And as we were getting ready to file out, there was a couple of people who stepped out ahead of the group, and one of them saw a woman standing out in the middle of our courtyard. We've got this big, beautiful courtyard out here, and they saw this woman standing out there in the courtyard right on the edge of where the light was hitting, and she was adorned all in white, had dark hair, wearing what looked like a calico dress that would have been popular there in the 1800s. And, they hollered at me and said, "There's somebody standing out here in the courtyard." So, of course, I come out, and everybody else was right on my heels, and so we're all standing outside the church, and here is this woman, again, solid apparition. She looked just as real as you and I, was standing out here in the courtyard just staring at us, and she was there for probably 15, 20 seconds just looking at us, and then she turned like she was going to walk away and just dissipated, just vanished into nothing.
That's the stuff that gives you goosebumps on
occasion.
It
does. Even telling the story, kind of gives me a little bit of a chill, just thinking about the incident. But it's not like the I'm scared kind of chill. I get excited when I do this. Mm. I love doing this, and so when I get that chill, it's because I'm excited about it.
And of course, when we came into this structure earlier this afternoon doing work, there was a cold spot.
I actually heard footsteps as we approached the building. I heard footsteps in this room, and we came through the door, and this room was noticeably cooler. It was probably 80, 88 degrees outside this afternoon. Pretty warm. And you walk in here, and there's a noticeable chill in this room, and it happens quite a bit, especially in this cabin. And again, that's why I'm so fond of this cabin, because there is a lot that goes on just in this one structure.
Yeah. And it is a hidden treasure.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it used to be a fairly popular attraction back in the days, but what with the economy being down, it affected everybody, and it affected us as well. But this place kind of got lost in amongst all that. A lot of the billboards had to come down, and a lot of our advertising really tapered off, and so it's kind of been forgotten.
And it's right up here. It's of course almost in Bull Shoals proper.
It is. It's in Bull Shoals proper, almost the center of the city.
Yeah, and it's easy to find, easy to get to. Beautiful location.
Gorgeous.
2 hour drive from Eureka Springs. 2 hour drive from Branson.
About an hour outside of Harrison.
Yeah. Easy to get to, and it's a great place to just connect with what truly is the Ozarks.
It is. It's a beautiful location. It's a nice, if you just want to come out and just relax and just take in a little bit of history and see real, like what it was like in the Old West. Boy, this is the place to go.
Yeah, it's beautiful out here,
Yeah.
and we just appreciate you letting State of the Ozarks come out and just share it.
I appreciate you guys coming out. I love sharing this. Unfortunately, with me living in Tulsa, I don't get to be here very often, but when I am, I love showing this place. And I love talking to people about it, and there's a good chance I might be moving over here, so I'm going to be here all the time to really get people excited about this. I want people to be as excited about it as I am. So I enjoy the opportunity for you to come out and to be able to tell everybody about this place. And I hope that people consider coming out here and seeing it.
I hope so too. It's a great addition to anybody's vacation.
Oh, absolutely.
For folks wanting to find it online,
it's 1890village.com. Really easy to find. Of course, we're also on Facebook, Mountain Village 1890 on Facebook. If you want to check out my haunted history tour, it's MV1890HHT. So it's Mountain Village 1890 Haunted History Tour. It's just the acronym of that. On Facebook, love to have you as part of our family.
And we'll get those links onto stateoftheozarks.net. And William, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming out. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.